A very warm welcome back to the program and thank you for remaining with us. My name is Anthony with Victor, here to give you a fresh start on what is happening in the world of financial markets. Like we mentioned earlier, we've looked at CIPLA, Quality Chemical Industries, which was the top gainer on Wednesday. And by the way, happy new month to all our investors here. This is the second day of November already, and the moods for Christmas are in high gear. I hope they are as well with you, Victor. Around this time, you should be already preparing for what to expect on Christmas.
Well, as a sole investor in CIPLA and Umeme, I do believe it's going to be an eventful end of year.
Absolutely.
But of course, the performance of CIPLA and Umeme is not coming as a surprise. The news coming from both entities is quite encouraging. But actually, Umeme had a share price appreciation of 0.23%, and we do believe it is still going higher with the coming hours, with the coming trading sessions. But turning to the losing side, we are looking at KCB Group that came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 4.24% at 452.51 Ugandan shillings per share. And it was followed closely by East African Breweries with a share price depreciation of 1.17%. Centum Investments with a share price depreciation of 0.68%, and Jubilee Holdings with 0.14% share price depreciation. But turning our focus to the highest volume of traded shares, we're looking at Bank of Baroda, and just recently I've actually seen some information coming from the Uganda Securities Exchange itself announcing the Bank of Baroda, some news from Bank of Baroda and its coming plans to release dividends. And just before we touch on that, and we have Bank of Baroda actually recorded the highest traded volume of 20.1 million traded shares, and obviously followed by Umeme with 63,900, Stanbic Bank Uganda with 44,200, and MTN Uganda with 6,825. But turning our attention to Bank of Baroda, we're seeing some information about their dividend payment notice on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Anthony, any information on that?
Yeah, Bank of Baroda Uganda informed its shareholders earlier on this year and the public that they will receive no objection from Bank of Uganda on the 24th of August 2023 to pay dividends to shareholders for the financial year ended 31st December 2022. The shareholders at the annual general meeting of the bank held on 4th of July earlier this year actually approved and proposed a dividend of 2 Ugandan shillings per share for the 2022 financial year, subject to approval of Bank of Uganda. The dividend for 2022 financial year was paid by the 30th of September to shareholders whose names appeared in the register on the close of business on the 22nd of September 2023.
Now, obviously, that was a public notice aired on behalf of Bank of Uganda Limited by the company's secretary, Anne Mbonyi. But turning our attention to MTN Uganda as well, with a highest traded volume of 6,825. Anthony, any insights on what is going on within MTN?
Yeah, it's actually going on right now in MTN Uganda. MTN is and was the first telecommunications company to list on the Uganda Stock Exchange in 2021. Airtel Uganda will be joining the exchange on the 7th of November, just a few days from now, Victor, and we will be seeing what will be happening to these stocks very, very keenly here on the program. But looking at MTN's financial results, that is for the 9 months ended on 30th of September 2023. These were released yesterday by MTN Uganda. As of course a listed company, they are obliged to release financial statements for specific periods in order to track their performance. The investors need to track their performance. Salient features in this performance included mobile subscribers increasing by 13.9% to 19 million. Yep, that's a very great improvement. The numbers, the moment the mobile subscribers are going up, you expect definitely all the other services to be going up. And that was exactly what we saw on the market. We had active data subscribers growing as well by 23% to 7.5 million.
Indeed. Well, as we are seeing, MTN might also get onto the winner's side in just a few hours, joining Sipla's Pride along with Umeme. But shifting our focus to NSSF, we are looking at NSSF that there's a possibility they could recoup at least 26% of Ugandan shillings 199 billion investment in the Airtel initial public offering by December after dividend payout. Anthony, could you please throw some light on this particular subject?
Yeah, when you look at the NSSF institution, that is the National Social Security Fund, they're looking at recouping at least 26% of the 199 billion shillings. The National Social Security Fund actually invested 199 billion in the IPO of Airtel Uganda, which was on the closure date on the 27th of October. The deadline date move, analysts have indicated, is beneficial to the fund, given that it served at least 200 billion to buy 10.55% of the stake at Airtel Uganda, and would have reached 400 billion had it not been for the discount by almost 50%. Airtel had offered a total of 40 billion shares, but is listing only 8 billion at the moment, and NSSF applied to buy 10.55% of the 40 billion, which is at least 4.22 billion shares at the moment. The offer closed last Friday after the 13th October closure date had been extended by 15 days.
NSSF is actually also expected to recoup dividends of about 52 billion Ugandan shillings, according to Airtel's projected Ugandan shillings 500 billion dividend payout for the year ended December 31st, which is about 26% of the 199 billion Ugandan shillings. But the post offer in new shareholders, if eligible as of the dividend entitlement dates, will be entitled to receive undistributed interim and all final dividends for financial year ending December 31st, 2023, in accordance with the company's dividend policy. Airtel actually noted this in its prospectus.
The Uganda Securities Exchange listing rules require approved dividend to be paid within at least 21 days of the book closure date. In the prospectus, Airtel indicated that dividend yield or dividend payments paid in respect of the first quarter amount to close to 38.08 billion shillings and 80.719 billion shillings in respect to the second quarter, while the telecom expects to declare a dividend in respect of the third quarter of the next month. NSSF, in its annual report for the period ended June 2023, indicated that dividend income experienced the biggest growth among its revenue streams, rising at least from 99.8 billion in June 2022 to 145.12 billion in June 2023.
Well, Anthony, actually, other streams include real estate investments and government papers, which have treasury bills and bonds. But during this period, NSSF earned more money from MTN's dividend payout compared to other stocks, recording an income of 31.5 billion Ugandan shillings from 9.3 billion for its 8.84% stake in the telecom. And Anthony, don't you think that this could have put the committee a little on pressure, because they're noticing that they're making remarkable earnings from MTN's dividend? Don't you think it's somewhat influenced their investment in Airtel?
Yeah, it definitely. For a number of years that NSSF has been investing in stocks, especially in Uganda. MTN has been a good one. Imagine in the very first year, they had the biggest contribution in equity returns. That showed that there is still hope. And now Airtel coming on board to list in the same industry, it means that probably they would expect even better results by investing in Airtel Uganda. So they definitely are excited, and they are on their hooks, trying to make sure that they don't miss the opportunity.
No wonder
while
the
it's
stake is bigger.
Absolutely.
But Airtel has a dividend policy of 95% of retained earnings or net profit after tax, whichever is higher. But the incentivized share offer has seen the purchase price diluted from Ugandan shillings 100 to 47 shillings. And Anthony just recently was actually showing his disappointment in the price decrease, because yes, NSSF bought such a big stake in the telecom, but the price had gone past halfway down. But this is actually for the 47, just to highlight, is only for institutional investors, and retail investors still remain at a 71 Ugandan shillings price point, which isn't so bad, but still a 29% decline is still worth noting. But it has actually also indicated that the dividend payout ratio in any given year will be subjected to multiple factors, including financial parameters and internal factors such as financial performance, impact of the return on equity and alternative use of cash, and external factors such as macroeconomic conditions, statutory requirements, and agreements with lending institutions. So the telecom also states in its prospectus that it may occasionally amend its dividend policy, and that it cannot guarantee that dividends will be paid in future. Now, that is something to take note.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's actually very scary to find that out.
Yeah. So it's not all exciting. 95% doesn't mean you're going to take home all the 95 every time. But this is liable to factors that include inflation, factors such as any other external factors that could be coming in to influence this. But Victor, when you look at the 47 shillings incentive and the 71 shillings incentive, it's a good and a bad thing as well. Number one, it's because now we've given a chance to big investors like NSSF. They are taking hold of 10.5%. right, and of the entire company, and 50% of all the shares that are going to be floated on the exchange. Now, when is NSSF ever going to trade shares? Are we seeing that we are heading into the direction where we have always been, in an illiquid market with no activity?
Because NSSF is not willing to let go.
Exactly. The NSSF is targeting the dividend. And by the time you're targeting the dividend, it means you are holding on to your stock. You're going to hold it until the dividend is paid.
But let's note they have already bought 51%.
They have already bought 51%.
So they have the biggest.
Is going to be illiquid. There's going to be no activity on all those shares for years.
You can imagine.
That's exactly why I do like the fact that Airtel is going to benefit from the fact that this institution is going to invest, but I'm kind of, on the flip side, disappointed for our local investors, because you're not going to have the same amount of transactions. The fewer investors you have, retail and local investors, the less active the stock will be. The less active the stock is, the less interesting the market is, and even with a high dividend yield and an illiquid stock, there's going to be very little return for the poor individual investor.
But as we are focusing on Airtel and everything that is going on within their share price, seeing what the MTN CEO actually said in her latest unaudited financial report, just looking at their operational review, we're looking at how they're looking at improving macro supporting revenue growth, the macro supporting revenue growth momentum. And just looking at it, it is indeed showing that this is going to be quite a stiff competition. MTN and Airtel being on the stock market at the same time is bound to set up some pressure. But the overall service revenue increased by 15.2% in MTN, and it was driven by solid commercial execution across all revenue lines. But looking at voice revenue particularly, it continued to grow strongly with a double-digit growth of 10.4%, supported by increased adoption of their attractive bundle offering and aggressive subscriber growth initiatives. But the strong revenue growth was also helped by the improving macroeconomic conditions and better weather patterns, which tend to largely impact customer base in the upcountry markets where we are dominant, where actually the telecom is dominant, which comes as a surprise because we are in the capital city. You'd expect MTN or Airtel itself to be most dominant within the business region, but they are stating in this report that they're actually most dominant upcountry, and they have actually revamped regional strategy, and they have continued to yield positive results with 937,000 subscribers added to their base in the third quarter.
Well, she also further highlighted that they have invested a total of 289.6 billion in the period, that is the 9 months up to 30th of September, in alignment with their strategic goal to build the largest and most valuable business platforms. Now, MTN is one of the biggest investors in fintechs and startups in Uganda. They have done a lot. They even have a girl skilling program where they do put girls in sort of a boot camp and teach them these special hands-on skills, and they have invested 289.6 billion Ugandan shillings. Now that is exactly what investors, at least for me, for my part, the local investors will see and invest in the company and say, okay, MTN is doing something out there in the community. She also continued further to say that following this recent spectrum allocation in July 2023, they were awarded additional 4G and new 5G spectrum under the 700 megahertz, 2,600 megahertz, and at least 2,300 megahertz, which successfully were deployed in the third quarter. Now that means faster internet for everyone, at least using the subscribing to the company, and of course faster internet for our different institutions. And I would think for a telecommunications company, that's the plus.
Indeed, but you're talking about fintechs. The same report actually highlights the fintech revenue that actually grew by 18.1%, which is obviously a notable growth in basic revenues and P2P and money transactions with the increased acceptance of mobile money. So their fintech subscribers actually increased by 9.7% to 11.6 million. So net additions of 709,000 in the third quarter alone, and the improved Q-to-Q customer growth is attributed to customer adoption to their Momo Pay platform, and with merchants growth of 222% to 290,000. And the adoption to cashless payments that has driven their transaction value, including zero-rated transactions, up by 57.7% to 96.5 trillion Ugandan shillings. And this is really, really remarkable performance from just their fintechs alone. And going further to their advanced revenues that grew steadily with a contribution of 24.6% to overall fintech revenue, as they introduced new payment corridors in North America, Europe, and Middle East to support their remittances portfolio. And the fintech contribution to services revenue also increased to 28.5%, and that is in the third quarter alone.
Wow. Now, looking at you, an investor, where are you in all this? And this is why we want you to be very keen every time these companies release financial statements, be it for 9 months, be it for 3 months. Where is your gain? Now, when you look at, first of all, the profit after tax, they increased their profit after tax at 21.1%. to over 354 billion. And as per their dividend policy, the board approved a second interim dividend of 6 Ugandan shillings per share, up from 5.4 declared in the previous year. This is exactly the reason as to why I would invest in stock markets, especially with a company that gives me this kind of feedback. MTN Uganda, the very first dividend they gave was 4.7. That went to 5.4, and now we are talking about 6 shillings. This is, to me, promising, and for our dear viewers out there, you should be expecting this to come to your accounts very soon. In total, when you look at the total dividend payment, we're going to have at least 134.3 billion Ugandan shillings for the quarter ended 30th of September 2023. That is passive income coming to your accounts just like that by you being an investor with MTN Uganda. Now, this is subject to deduction, of course, of withholding taxes. The number of ordinary shares in issue at the date of the declaration were at least 22.38 billion shares. That is the number of shares we are talking about here.
Well, actually, Anthony, thank you so much for that insight, and I'm sure so many capable and so many other more interested investors in the MTN stock particularly have been paying keen attention. But obviously, this, as you've said, with the share price and dividends respectively, in compliance with the requirements, the Uganda Securities Exchange listing rules 2021, the salient dates relating to the payment of the MTN dividends are as follows. So the book closure date is 1st December 2023, which will be a Friday, and the dividend payment itself is the 22nd.
Happy Christmas
of December 2023 on Friday. Indeed.
Yes.
And if you really had a big stake in MTN, chances are high that by that day the price will have skyrocketed, because this news alone is enough to push that share price up.
Absolutely. And for our viewers who may not understand the book closure date, if you are to benefit from this dividend, you must have bought shares by the book closure date. And so the book closure date is 1st December. So even today, when you buy shares, no matter how many there are, you're going to still be part of the beneficiaries of this dividend, meaning you're going to invest money and immediately by 1st December, you're going to recoup some of that money, just like we mentioned on the NSSF story. They're investing 199 billion in Airtel, and 26%, that is 52 billion, will be already back in their pockets by December. Right, and that's the excitement of being an investor.
And actually, sorry, the Uganda Securities Exchange itself is stating that the ex-dividend date will actually be Tuesday, 28th November of 2023. So accordingly, an investor who buys the MTN Uganda shares before this date will be entitled to the interim dividend, as you've stated. But we're noticing that this is actually earlier than the actual book closure date.
28th November is the ex-dividend date, and so usually this is the date when, of course, they start closing in 3 days, because 28th November is 3 days to the book closure date. So at least to be safe, you must buy before 28th.
And they're clearly stating that after 28th, you will buy the share, but you won't be able to enjoy that extra interim.
Exactly. And on the 22nd of December, that money will be electronically transferred to all bank accounts or even mobile money wallets of shareholders. This is, of course, signed by Madam Sylvia Molinge, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the MTN Uganda company, and Mr. Andrew Bugembe, who is the Chief Finance Officer of the company. I think we need to take a quick break.
Indeed.
And when we return, we have just one extra story from the Ugandan market, and that is about the inflation figures. Now, did you know that in the month of September, the prices went down, especially food crop prices, and of course, inflation, headline inflation has also declined, according to Bank of Uganda. However, the fuel prices have continued to escalate, and fuel inflation has affected the core inflation as well. We're coming back with that and more, of course, from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Don't touch your dial, stay with us.
Smart24, driving